What if I told you that the most dangerous part of your spiritual journey isn't getting lost in darkness, it's slowly drifting away from your truth while thinking you're still on the path? That's the thing about misalignment. It doesn't always scream, it whispers. It hides behind productivity, behind good intentions, behind spiritual language and rituals that look right on the surface but feel hollow deep down. We don't wake up one day and say, "I'm going to betray my soul today." No, it's more subtle. It starts when you say yes to something that doesn't feel right, but you do it anyway to please someone. It starts when you silence your intuition just to keep the peace. It starts when you stay in a version of yourself that no longer fits because changing feels inconvenient or uncertain. That's how misalignment begins. Not in catastrophe, but in compromise. And here's the scary part. Most people don't even know they're walking the path of misalignment until something breaks. A relationship collapses. A job that once felt fulfilling feels like a cage. A body that used to carry you now refuses to cooperate. Or worse, everything in your life looks fine, but you feel numb, detached, disconnected from your own spirit. That's when the soul begins to whisper louder. That's when the universe starts sending signs. And if we're awake enough, we'll hear them. If not, they'll get louder and louder until we do. The first spiritual sign of misalignment is chronic inner fatigue, not just being tired from work or life, but a deep, soul-level exhaustion. You could sleep for 10 hours and still wake up feeling heavy. It's the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix, because it's not your body that's tired, it's your spirit. It's tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of carrying the weight of a life that doesn't reflect your truth. When you're aligned, your energy flows. Even if life is busy or challenging, there's a deep sense of vitality. But when you're misaligned, you leak energy constantly. Every decision that betrays your intuition takes a little more life force. Every boundary you don't hold drains your spirit. Over time, that adds up and your body becomes the messenger. Another sign is emotional numbness. You don't feel joy like you used to, or sadness, or anything in between. You go through the motions. You smile when expected. You laugh at the right jokes. But inside there's a fog, a flat line. You're not depressed, you're disconnected. You're not broken, you're out of resonance. When we're in alignment, emotions flow naturally. We cry when something moves us. We laugh from the belly. We feel things fully. But misalignment builds walls around our emotional body. It keeps us from feeling too much because deep down we know if we let ourselves really feel, we'd have to make changes we've been avoiding. So we go numb, and we call it coping. Then there's the constant overthinking. You can't decide. You second-guess everything. You play out every scenario in your head like a movie you can't stop rewinding. That's a sign your mind is trying to compensate for a lack of inner clarity. Overthinking is the ego's way of trying to control what the soul hasn't approved. When you're aligned, decisions feel clear. Not always easy, but clear. You feel a yes in your gut, a no in your chest. But when you're misaligned, the mind takes over because the heart has gone quiet. And no matter how much logic you apply, nothing truly feels right. You might also notice that your environment starts rejecting you. Things that used to fit no longer do. People you once clicked with now feel foreign. You walk into spaces and feel out of place, even if you've been there 100 times. That's not a coincidence. That's your frequency shifting. That's your soul saying, you've outgrown this. But instead of listening, we often try to force ourselves to fit back into the old mold. We try harder. We shrink. We compromise. And with every act of self-abandonment, we move further from alignment. Another powerful sign is a recurring sense of meaninglessness. Even when things are going well, you can't shake the feeling that something is missing. You might achieve a goal and feel nothing. You might be surrounded by love and still feel alone. That's the soul's hunger speaking. That's the deeper part of you crying out for purpose, for connection, for truth. And the thing is, You can't fill that void with more success, more followers, more distraction. The only thing that satisfies the soul is authenticity. And when you're not living in alignment with your deepest truth, you will always feel that ache no matter how good life looks on the outside. Then there's the spiritual sign that's hardest to admit: resentment. You start resenting others for their freedom. You get irritated by people who are living boldly, speaking their truth, taking risks. Not because you dislike them, but because deep down you want to do the same. Resentment is often a mirror. It shows us the parts of ourselves we've silenced. It reveals the dreams we've buried. And instead of judging ourselves for feeling it, we need to ask, what part of me is trying to wake up through this discomfort? Because that's what resentment really is. It's your soul knocking on the door saying, stop settling. You were meant for more. And perhaps the most subtle but powerful sign of misalignment is when your intuition goes quiet. You used to get gut feelings. You used to know. But now, why? Static. Silence. Confusion. That's not because your intuition is gone, it's because you've stopped listening. Intuition doesn't shout. It whispers. And when we ignore it long enough, it stops speaking, not out of punishment, but because it respects our free will. But the beautiful thing is, the moment we turn back toward it, the voice returns. Maybe quietly at first, but it comes back. Because your soul has never left you. It's just been waiting for you to return. So now I ask you, are you tired because life is hard, or because you're living a version of life that no longer reflects who you truly are?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
What if the very things we've been praised for, our discipline, our consistency, our kindness, our ability to hold everything together, are sometimes the exact masks that keep us from seeing how deeply misaligned we've become? That's the silent sabotage. It's when misalignment doesn't come dressed in chaos or destruction, but in control, in order, in the illusion of a well-managed life. You're productive. You're efficient. You're always doing the right thing. Everyone thinks you're thriving. But inside, there's a quiet ache, a low hum of disconnection. And you can't quite name it because everything looks so good on paper. But your soul knows. It always knows. Misalignment doesn't always show up as failure. Sometimes it shows up as success that doesn't fulfill you. You hit the goals. You check the boxes. You live the dream you once prayed for. And yet, it feels empty. That's the paradox of spiritual misalignment. It can hide behind everything that looks like progress. You can be praised for your achievements while internally dying from a lack of meaning. You can serve others beautifully while abandoning yourself completely. You can smile your way through breakdowns and call it strength. But deep down, you know something's off. And the more you try to fix it with doing more, doing better, doing endlessly, the further you drift from being. One of the most deceptive forms of misalignment is overproductivity. You're always busy, always building, always fixing. You can't sit still for long because stillness is where the truth creeps in. So you stay moving. You fill your days with checklists and projects, convincing yourself that momentum equals purpose. But purpose isn't found in endless motion. It's found in presence, in peace. In listening to the quiet voice that only speaks when everything else goes silent. And sometimes that voice says things you don't want to hear. It says, this isn't your path anymore. It says, you're living their dream, not yours. It says, stop, not because you're failing, but because you're forcing. And there's a difference. Another mask of misalignment is false positivity. You've mastered the art of reframing everything. You call every setback a lesson, every pain a blessing, every challenge an opportunity. And yes, there's power in perspective, but not if it becomes a bypass. Not if it becomes a way to avoid the raw, real feelings that are trying to lead you back to your truth. Sometimes pain isn't meant to be quickly rebranded into a lesson. It's meant to be felt, sat with, honored, because buried in that pain is often the exact guidance you've been asking for. And when we skip over it too quickly, we miss the message. Then there's the trap of doing the right thing. You make the responsible choice. You take the high road. You sacrifice your needs for the good of others. You become the version of yourself that others expect, and you do it so well, you start to believe it's who you are. But if your right choices are constantly rooted in fear of disappointing others, fear of being judged, fear of being alone, then you're not choosing from truth. You're choosing from survival. And that's not alignment. That's self-abandonment disguised as virtue. The most spiritually aligned choice isn't always the one that looks right. Sometimes alignment looks like saying no, like walking away, like disappointing people who benefit from your silence. Sometimes it looks like breaking the very pattern that once earned you praise. We're not taught to question success. We're not taught to pause when things are going well. But the truth is, misalignment can thrive in the most polished parts of our lives. It doesn't need chaos. It only needs our unconscious agreement. And the longer we stay asleep inside the life we built out of expectation, the more disconnected we become from the life we were meant to live. That's the silent sabotage. It's not loud. It's not violent. It's subtle. And that's what makes it so dangerous. So how do we wake up from it? We stop. We pause. We pay attention to what no longer lights us up, no matter how long we've been doing it. We start asking deeper questions. Is this truly me, or the me I thought I had to become to be loved? Am I living from alignment or from habit? Am I saying yes because it's true, or because I'm afraid of what will happen if I say no? These questions don't have easy answers, but they have honest ones. And honest answers will always lead you back to alignment. You don't have to burn your life down. You don't have to quit everything or run away. But you do have to listen. You have to get radically honest about what's working and what's not. You have to stop mistaking comfort for alignment. You have to be willing to disappoint the version of yourself that you built for survival so you can step into the version of yourself that was born for truth. That's the real path. That's the path of alignment. And it's not always neat, but it will always set you free. So I'll ask you this: what parts of your life are thriving on the surface, but starving your soul underneath? There comes a point when the soul stops whispering and starts screaming. Not with words, but with sensations, with disruptions, with an unshakable sense that something is off even if you can't explain it. It's that moment when the life you've constructed so carefully starts to feel like a cage, when every achievement tastes like ash, when the things that once brought joy now feel like weights, and still you try to push forward. You tell yourself you're just in a phase. You distract yourself with busyness, with noise, with goals. You convince yourself that if you just keep going, the feeling will pass. But it doesn't, because it wasn't meant to. That feeling isn't the problem, it's the messenger. And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. Ignoring the inner voice is one of the most common spiritual wounds in this modern world. We've been trained since childhood to listen to everything except ourselves. We listen to parents, teachers, culture, algorithms, influencers, and spiritual experts. We look outward for the answers that only exist inward. And when that voice inside us starts to rise, starts to say, "This isn't it," we silence it with logic. We call it impractical. We call it unrealistic. We call it selfish. But what if that voice is the only thing in your life that's truly real? What if the discomfort you're feeling isn't a sign that something right was trying to be born through you? The soul doesn't care about your comfort zone. It doesn't care about your 5-year plan, your job security, your social status, or how many people approve of your choices. The soul is ancient. It remembers who you are beneath the masks. It remembers what you came here to do. And when you drift too far from that truth, it sends signals. First softly through intuition, through dreams, through small moments of unease. And if you ignore those, it sends bigger ones through breakdowns, through burnout, through relationships falling apart or unexpected losses. Not because the universe is cruel, but because your soul loves you too much to let you live a lie forever. And yet, even as the signs multiply, we often double down. We cling harder to what's familiar. We stay in relationships that diminish us. We keep jobs that numb us. We perform happiness instead of pursuing truth. Why? Because change is terrifying. Because honoring the inner voice means stepping into the unknown. It means risking rejection, risking failure, and sometimes risking everything we've built. But here's the paradox. The longer you deny your soul, the more painful your success becomes. The more you achieve from misalignment, the heavier it all feels. Eventually, you realize you haven't been building a life, you've been building a prison. So what does it mean to actually listen to the soul? It means slowing down long enough for silence to speak. It means creating space not just in your calendar, but in your heart. It means asking yourself questions without needing immediate answers. Questions like, what is trying to end in my life right now? What am I pretending not to know? What part of me is begging to be heard? But I keep silencing it because I don't want to deal with the consequences of change. These are not questions for the faint of heart. They are questions for the brave, for those willing to trade certainty for truth. Listening to your soul doesn't always lead to a dramatic life overhaul. Sometimes it leads to small, quiet shifts that change everything. Saying no when you always said yes. Speaking up when you used to stay silent. Choosing rest over proving. Choosing truth over pleasing. And yes, sometimes it does lead to big changes. Walking away, starting over, reinventing your entire life because you finally realize the real you has never had a chance to breathe. This path isn't linear. It's messy, non-logical, and deeply emotional. You may cry for reasons you can't name. You may grieve identities you worked hard to build. You may feel lost before you feel found. But every tear, every crack, every moment of confusion is sacred. Because it means you're no longer asleep. It means you're no longer willing to live a half-life. It means the soul's echo has reached your heart and you're finally listening. And don't expect everyone to understand. Some people will call your awakening a breakdown. They'll say you've changed as if that's a bad thing. But you're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to become who you were always meant to be. And not everyone will have access to that version of you, and that's okay. Alignment isn't about being liked. It's about being true. And when you're true, the right people, the right path, and the right opportunities will align themselves around your frequency like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. So I ask you, what would happen if, just for a moment, you stopped trying to fix the feeling and started listening to it? What if the feeling isn't the problem, but the compass? There is a point on the path where the pain of misalignment becomes unbearable, not because life is falling apart, but because you finally realize you've fallen away from yourself. And in that moment, something ancient within you begins to stir. Not a voice of panic or shame, but a quiet pulse. A remembering. This is the beginning of your return to resonance. Realignment doesn't begin with a strategy. It begins with a choice. A choice to stop abandoning yourself. A choice to come back to the inner frequency you sacrificed in the name of survival, performance, or approval. And the most beautiful thing, no matter how far you've drifted, your soul does not hold it against you. It simply waits, patiently, lovingly, ready the moment you are. To realign means to reconnect with the truth of who you are, not who you've been conditioned to be. It means becoming honest, radically honest, about what no longer fits. That job that drains you, that relationship that suffocates you, that version of you that learned to shrink to stay safe. Realignment demands courage, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that says, I'm no longer willing to betray myself just to keep things comfortable. That's where it begins. Not with grand gestures, but with simple truth. With looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I miss me. And I'm ready to come home. Coming back into resonance requires stillness because the soul speaks in silence. You won't find your answers in the noise, in the next productivity hack, or the next spiritual trend. You find them in the quiet, in the breath, in the uncomfortable space between no longer and not yet. That space is sacred. Don't rush it. Don't fill it. Let it be what it is. The womb of your rebirth. Let yourself feel everything you've been avoiding. The grief, the anger, the regret, even the confusion. These are not blocks. These are bridges. Every emotion you allow to rise without judgment brings you one step closer to your center. And as you begin to listen again, truly listen, you'll start to hear that quiet voice return. Not as a shout, but as an inner knowing. A subtle nudge. A whisper that says, "This way." You may not get the full map. Realignment rarely gives you the whole plan. It gives you the next step, and you take it. Even if your voice shakes, even if you're scared, you take it because your soul is leading now, not your fear. And that's how alignment is rebuilt, step by sacred step, choice by sacred choice. You'll start to notice your energy return, not because you're doing less, but because you're doing what's true. You'll feel joy again, not the performative kind, but the kind that rises quietly and unexpectedly in ordinary moments. You'll feel peace not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. That's resonance. Not a life without problems, but a life where your outer world reflects your inner truth. And once you taste that, you can never go back. But remember, realignment is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong practice. You will drift. You will forget. You will fall into old patterns. That's okay. The goal is not perfection, it's presence. The more you stay present with yourself, the faster you notice when you've drifted, and the more quickly you can return. The journey isn't linear. It spirals. And each time you return with more wisdom, more clarity, more compassion for who you've been and who you're becoming. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all, when you realign with your soul, you give others permission to do the same. Your authenticity becomes a lighthouse. Your truth becomes contagious. Not because you're preaching it, but because you're embodying it. And in this world of noise, that embodiment is revolutionary. So I'll leave you with this. What would your life look like if every choice you made from this moment forward was rooted in alignment with your soul? What would you say yes to? What would you finally let go of? And who would you become if you stopped trying to be who the world wanted and started being who you were born to be? That's the invitation. That's the return. That's the path back to resonance. And it's been waiting for you all along.